Poor black boy marries 65-year-old woman. 7 days later he discovers her secret. The sun had nearly disappeared beyond the crumbling rooftops of the Detroit projects, leaving behind a cold copper hue in the sky. Marcus sat silently on the front steps of his building, a wrench still in his hand, his grease-stained overall soaked from an earlier drizzle. At just 23, Marcus carried more weight than most men twice his age. His mother had died when he was 10. His younger sister was in foster care. His father, once a proud man, had vanished into the streets and never returned. All that remained was the aching burden of poverty and the constant need to survive. Marcus worked long shifts at a rundown auto garage owned by a grumpy old man who paid him in cash and expired snacks. He tried to finish community college, but Bill Street pressure and hunger crushed that dream quickly. His days blended into nights and his nights into silence. Hope was a rare visitor. That was until the evening he received a strange message. It came in the form of a handwritten envelope. An envelope, not a text, not a call. A letter neatly folded and slid beneath the door of his apartment. The name on it was written in cursive, Mrs. Evelyn Harrington. He had never heard the name. Inside was a simple note. Marcus, I need to speak with you urgently. Minerva's Cafe, 6:30 p.m. Don't be late. A. His first instinct was to toss the note. Scam, maybe. Or some rich person playing with the poor for kicks. But something about the handwriting felt heavy, real, and honestly, he didn't have much else going on that night but reheating noodles and scrolling through job rejections. So he went. Minerva's Cafe was a quiet little place on the east end of town. Most folks didn't even know it still existed. He walked in, wearing his one good shirt and a skeptical frown. Sitting near the window, sipping tea with precise, delicate fingers, was a woman who looked like she belonged in a luxury magazine from 30 years ago. She was tall, elegant, with silver hair tied into a graceful bun. Her skin was pale and smooth, except for the edges around her eyes. Those told stories. She wore an ivory trench coat, a black silk scarf, and an air of control. Marcus, she'd said, looking up with eyes sharp as glass. You came? That's good. He sat uneasily. Who are you? How do you know my name? She smiled. Let's just say I know more about you than you think. I've done my research. You're talented, underpaid, and stuck in a cycle you didn't create. I also know you're loyal and desperate. Marcus blinked. Okay, so what do you want from me? Mrs. Harrington leaned in. I want you to marry me. The silence between them thickened like molasses. Marcus stared, thinking he misheard. I'm sorry. What? You heard me? She said. I want you to marry me legally. It will be a real marriage on paper. Nothing romantic. In return, I will pay off your debts, secure your future, and give you a stable life. No strings, no intimacy, just companionship and appearances. He almost laughed. Lady, you're old enough to be my grandmother. Why would I marry you? She didn't flinch. Because I'm offering you something no one else has. Freedom. A future. Marcus studied her, the corner of his mouth twitching. What's the catch? There's always a catch, she said. But not one you'll see. Not yet. Just say yes. Marry me next week. Live with me for 30 days. After that, you can walk away with more than you ever had. Every fiber in his body screamed. This was wrong. Crazy. But the rent was overdue. His lights were about to be cut off and his sister needed help getting back into school. And here sat a woman offering a golden ticket wrapped in mystery. He stared out the cafe window, unsure if he was dreaming. Then he looked back at her and said, okay. Marcus hadn't slept the night after he said, okay. Even as he tried to convince himself it was just a business agreement, the weight of what he was about to do sat like concrete on his chest. But he had made his decision, and in a life full of disappointments, saying yes to something this strange was different, almost bold. 3 days later, He found himself standing in front of a black iron gate, so tall it swallowed the sky. The estate. Behind it didn't look like it belonged in Detroit or even in this century. Red brick walls, white stone pillars, ivy crawling over balconies, windows that gleamed like secrets. It wasn't just a house. It was an empire surrounded by silence. A driver had picked Marcus up in a black car that morning and brought him here. No conversation, just a sealed envelope in the glove compartment that said, "Welcome to your new life." As the gates opened and the car crept forward, Marcus looked out the window and saw the world shift. The city disappeared behind him, swallowed by walls and hedges. He had entered another universe, one ruled by Mrs. Evelyn Harrington. The wedding happened that same evening. It was a quiet, private ceremony held in the Harrington mansion's garden. No friends, no family, just Evelyn, a lawyer, and two witnesses who looked like they'd been paid handsomely to keep quiet. She wore a deep emerald gown. He wore a black suit that had magically appeared in his closet earlier that day, tailored to fit perfectly. They signed papers, took a photo, and just like that, Marcus became the husband of a woman 42 years older than him. When it was over, she raised a glass of wine and said, "To freedom and to shadows." He wasn't sure what that meant, but he drank anyway. The mansion had over 40 rooms, including a grand library, an indoor greenhouse, a wine cellar, and something Evelyn called the Velvet Room, which he was told was off-limits. No explanation given. There were only 3 people on staff. A chef named Yvonne, who never smiled. A housekeeper named Darius who always walked with a limp and a driver named Mitchell who barely blinked. All of them treated Marcus with distant politeness but never looked him in the eye. Evelyn, true to her word, kept her distance. They ate meals together but barely spoke. She spent most of her time in the east wing of the mansion in a room he had never seen. At night, Marcus sometimes heard soft music coming from that part of the house. Old jazz records playing on a loop as if someone were dancing alone in a memory. By day 4, Marcus began to feel the pressure of the quiet. The silence in the mansion wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like something unspoken was trapped in the walls. He felt like he was being watched. One night around 2:00 a.m. he heard footsteps outside his room. Slow, deliberate. He opened the door. No one except a faint smell of cigar smoke lingering in the air. But Evelyn didn't smoke, and none of the staff did either. On day 6, curiosity got the better of Marcus. He remembered the Velvet Room, the one Evelyn had told him to never enter. He waited until everyone was asleep. Then he crept through the halls barefoot, his heart pounding. The door to the Velvet Room was deep red, carved with strange swirling patterns, and it wasn't locked. He pushed it open. The room was dim, lit by a chandelier with red-tinted bulbs. Thick velvet curtains lined the walls. In the center there was an altar. Yes, an altar with photos, candles, and something else. Old letters. Marcus stepped closer. On the table were photographs of him, not from the wedding. Older photos of him working in the garage, walking home, sitting on his porch. Dozens of them, some were years old. His chest tightened. What the hell is this? And then he saw it. A large leather-bound book. On the front, Harrington lineage sealed bonds. He opened it. There on the second page was a sketch of a boy. He looked just like Marcus. Same face, same eyes. The page read, Subject 27, Bloodline Extension Candidate Acquired. Monitor for traits. Prepare for activation. His hands began to tremble. He slammed the book shut and behind him someone whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that." Marcus spun around. Evelyn stood in the doorway, no longer elegant, no longer graceful. Her eyes were fierce, her voice calm, but dark. "You've been chosen, Marcus. You don't understand what this marriage means. Not yet. But you will." He backed away. "You lied to me. This wasn't about helping me. This is something else." She smiled. "Of course it is." Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in the far corner of his room, lights on, clutching the leather-bound book he had stolen from the velvet room. Evelyn hadn't come after him. She hadn't said another word. She had just turned and walked away, leaving him alone with the knowledge that his life was not his own. The words in the book haunted him. Subject 27, Bloodline Extension Candidate. What the hell did that mean? And those photographs, who had taken them? How had she been watching him for years? What did activation mean? The next morning, Evelyn greeted him at breakfast like nothing had happened. She poured tea, cut her toast, and asked, "Would you like to go for a walk today, Marcus? The gardens are blooming beautifully." He stared at her, heart pounding. "Why me? What does that book mean?" She smiled softly. "All in due time, my dear." He slammed his fist on the table. "Number now." Evelyn's smile faded. Her voice dropped. "Because you were born for this. Your blood. Your history. It's older than you understand. And because of your father." Marcus froze. "My father? He left when I was a kid. I haven't seen him since." Evelyn stood, walked to the window, and looked out over the estate. "Your father wasn't just some deadbeat who vanished. He was a Harrington." Marcus blinked. "What are you talking about? You're not just poor by accident. You're the product of betrayal. Your father was my husband's illegitimate son. He ran away with a housemaid, tried to erase the bloodline, tried to hide you. But I have always known. No. Yes. You, Marcus, are the last living heir to the Harrington dynasty, but legally you weren't entitled to anything until I changed that. Until I married you." Marcus was speechless. The world spun around him. She continued, "The Harrington legacy was built on powerful dark contracts, blood-binding pacts made generations ago. Every generation must pass the title and its burdens to the next heir or the estate crumbles. And that's why I needed you. I'm dying, Marcus. And now the legacy passes to you." Marcus tried to run, but the mansion, once majestic, now felt like a labyrinth. Doors that used to open were suddenly locked. Rooms twisted into unfamiliar shapes. The hallway mirrors warped his reflection. It was as if the house knew he was trying to escape and was alive. Voices whispered through the vents. "He's not ready. He must accept." Yvonne the chef appeared in the hallway. Her eyes were hollow. "You shouldn't fight it," she whispered. "What is this place?" Marcus yelled. "What have you people done?" Darius, the limping housekeeper, stepped from the shadows. "We all married into the bloodline. You think we're staff? We're prisoners just like you." Marcus' breath caught. "You're trapped here." Darius nodded. "Bound by oath, by ritual, by Evelyn." Evelyn appeared again, seemingly everywhere and nowhere. "This isn't a home," she said. "It's a vessel. The Harrington family made a pact with something old, something that lives in the house that feeds on legacy. Every generation must sacrifice. A life for a life, a soul to feed the bloodline." Marcus backed up. "You said this was just a marriage of convenience." "It was," she said, "until the seventh day. That's when the bond becomes eternal." The walls shook outside. The sky darkened unnaturally fast. The sun was gone. "It's time," Evelyn whispered. Marcus ran. He bolted to the east wing, down the stairs, toward the wine cellar, the only place he hadn't explored. Inside, beneath loose tiles, he found it. A door carved into stone. Symbols etched around a frame pulsed with red light. The voices grew louder. "You are the heir." He kicked the door open. Inside was a chamber. Candles floated mid-air. A circle drawn in blood. And at the center an old throne made of bone and blackwood. And behind it a shadow, a formless figure shifting and monstrous, ancient and watching. It spoke. "You carry the blood. You cannot run from it. You are the Harrington. Marcus fell to his knees. I didn't choose this. The shadow hissed. But she did. And now you belong to me. Suddenly, Evelyn stood beside him. She was no longer 65. Her wrinkles faded, her posture straightened, her hair darkened before his eyes. She was transforming, rejuvenating, feeding off. The ritual. I told you, she whispered. 30 years ago, I bound myself to the bloodline. Every generation, I marry the heir. Every generation, I live again. You were my final contract. I'll live another lifetime now. Marcus's voice shook. You used me. You used my whole life. And your father and his father before him, she said. The bloodline demands payment. And you, Marcus, are the final heir. Your signature sealed it. Your marriage completed it. You're not a husband. You're the offering. But just as the creature reached for Marcus, he did something no Harrington ever had the courage to do. He refused. Marcus pulled a lighter from his pocket. The book, the lineage, the binding was still clutched in his hand. He lit the flame. No contract, no curse. He set it ablaze. Evelyn screamed. A scream not human, not woman. Her body twisted, crumbled, and the house began to tremble. The shadow lunged, but without the book. The contract burned. The curse broke. The mansion split open with a deafening roar. The spell was undone. The bloodline freed. Marcus woke up in a hospital bed 2 days later. Luan, his childhood friend, sat beside him. They found you in the rubble of that old Harrington estate. Place caught fire, burned everything. Marcus sat up. And Evelyn? Luan looked at him. There was no Evelyn in the records, no marriage certificate, no legal trace of her at all. It's like she never existed. Marcus moved out of Detroit. He started a small garage in Atlanta. Simple life, honest work. But every now and then when he walked past an old mirror or heard jazz playing on the radio, he'd swear he saw a glimpse of her smiling, waiting. Because legacies don't die easily and some curses just sleep.